We've talked a lot about how amazing the economic environment has been here in Enrico, and so now I'm going to invite Twyla Powell up. She's the Managing Director for Domestic and International New Business Development for Enrico, and she's going to come up and talk to you a little bit about this panel.
Thank you, everyone. And I just want to say it's so great to see people that I've seen people at other conferences and all the friends I've made over the years here in Henrico. And as you know, I've talked to you a lot about Henrico whenever you've seen me. So it's a pleasure to see you here, and thank you for coming. As the business development person in Henrico, I've been lucky enough to be involved with IEIC since its inception. And today I'm happy to host, or we in Henrico are happy to host this Summit 2.0. In Henrico, we pride ourselves on a business-first approach, and we're always looking for opportunities for public and private collaboration. I've personally been involved in the data center industry, and I've seen how the digital infrastructure in Henrico has advanced in a very short time. And this advancement has led to growth in our region, both in number of people employed and in capital investment. And our next session is a fireside chat the topic is economic growth driven by digital infrastructure. And we are going to be listening to the panelists talk about that at the local and state level. And I would like to call the speakers to the stage right now. Jason Elkubi, the President and CEO of VEDP, and Anthony Romanello, my boss, the Executive Director of Henrico EDA. And to moderate the panel, our own Vinay Nagpal, the Executive Director and Founder of IEIC. So.
Thank you. This is going to be one of the fun discussions here we're going to have about economic development and the growth that we've seen with this infrastructure that we've been hearing from people about. Jason, I'd like to start with you. Virginia is known to be the data center capital of the world. There's a lot of infrastructure being developed and continues to be developing. You know, I personally lived in Virginia for the last 22 years. What's your perspective when you look at the state over the last couple of decades, how you've seen the infrastructure evolve and its impact to the economy of Virginia?
Oh, it's really been an extraordinary story, Vinay, and I'm so glad we get to tell that story here. It's really exciting just to be here. So great to be with all of you. I would say, you know, just thinking about the big picture, part of what's happened here is a story of an amazing business climate. You know, when you think about Virginia, you're thinking about a place that has one of the strongest workforces in the world, much, you know, educational attainment much higher than the U.S. overall. About 40% of people in the workforce here have a bachelor's degree or higher. It's a place with amazing educational institutions. It's a place of great innovation. It's also a place that really values infrastructure and also a place where you know, innovation is embraced, where government is a great partner. We also have the great fortune of having some leading research universities and leading government entities, you know, research enterprises in our backyard, and that's of course a big part of the reason why Virginia has emerged as one of the, you know, the capital of the world in this area, and it's just been an incredible success story, not just because of the innovation and the overall environment, but also of the partnerships that exist, including the kinds of partnerships that we enjoy. The partnerships exist to really nurture the development of this infrastructure and this industry, and to continue to keep it growing for decades to come.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jason. Anthony, you haven't been in this role for that long, although I feel that I've been working with you for multiple decades now. 88% reduction of the sales and use tax. What led to it, and what impact have you seen from it?
Thank you, Vinay, for pointing out that working with me for 3.5 years is like decades. I appreciate that. The entire EDA team would agree with you there.
They asked me to specifically say this here. So.
They did. I'm sorry. Say your question again.
88% reduction in the sales and use tax from a data center perspective. Why? When did that happen? Why it happened? And what is the impact of that you've seen?
Yeah, you heard John Vitolkas, our county manager, talk about at the beginning of the day, and that rate was taken down 5 years ago in 2017. It was part of what brought Facebook, now Meta, to White Oak Technology Park. And what we've seen in that last 5 years, we took the tax rate down 90%, and our data center tax revenues are up over 400%.
400%.
Exactly.
Where is it headed next? What's your goal over the next 5-10 years, Anthony?
Well, we want to continue to grow the ecosystem. It's a big part of the diversity of Henrico's economy, which is why we're sponsoring today's event, and happy to be a partner with QTS and Meta and everybody that's DKIX, everybody that's in the room. We see that there's going to be continued substantial growth in the data center industry, as well as all of the ecosystem that's part of it. I know PDI Eaton is here today, and Nord Mardix. We've seen many of not just the data center companies, but the data center suppliers that are growing with the industry.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you bring up the ecosystem, right? It's one is the data center suppliers from a data center perspective, but also part of the ecosystem I consider the companies that are coming inside the data center. They're bringing their IT infrastructure to the data center. Obviously, there may not be IT-related companies, but they're bringing their IT infrastructure here. Jason, your role as the CEO of Virginia Economic Development Partnership at a state level, how do you view data center beyond the buildings? How do you view data centers as making an impact to other enterprises across different industries?
Well, one of the big things that we've observed over the last couple of decades is really the digitization of the entire economy. We use different words for that, whether we're from a European context or from an American context. But you're seeing the backbone of data centers and internet infrastructure here in Virginia, really serving the needs of the economy across this country globally. So, I mean, first of all, let's recognize that the infrastructure itself, the investment in data centers and related infrastructure itself is an enormous part of this economy. So I don't want to discount that at all. It is a very smart bet for Virginia. It benefits the state enormously, and it benefits the communities where this infrastructure is located in a very substantial way. But you're right, Vinay, beyond the basic infrastructure, I think one of the biggest advantages that Virginia enjoys economically is the whole ecosystem of support and innovation around this infrastructure. It's not just the sort of direct investment in data centers. It's also the innovation, the vendors that support that, and as this infrastructure expands globally, Virginia will be a leader in enabling that expansion to happen and to serve it, which will be great for other parts of this country and other parts of the world, but also great for Virginia, given the capabilities that have developed here around the data center and related ecosystem. I think finally, one of the things that I think about, and one of the things that I've really enjoyed exploring with all of you over the last 24 hours or so, is considering what sorts of other opportunities, when we think about big data, when we think about the metaverse, when we think about the business advantages, the economic advantages of reducing latency, what are some of the other enormous opportunities that are conferred by being close to this kind of nexus of information here in Virginia?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit a key point there about partnership as well, especially when you look at public-private partnership. That plays a key role in the development of the sector. And Anthony, from the very first time we met, you've been a big proponent of public-private partnership. And yes, I do applaud you for that. And thank you for your support of the private sector. What have you seen personally there in terms of that partnership evolve and the value proposition that you harness from that?
Well, it doesn't. We can't do it alone as government, and we think that our role is to be a catalyst for the private sector. And just a very quick history lesson: White Oak Technology Park, which is just outside of Richmond International Airport, the property was taken in 1942 by the government to be a decoy airport. They were concerned that Richmond Airport, then Byrd Field, was going to get bombed by the Nazis. When it wasn't bombed by the Nazis, they gave the property to the Commonwealth of Virginia. The state thought about it for a while, about 50 years, and couldn't figure out what to do with it. And then in 1994, they gave it to Henrico. Henrico put $45 million into roads, water, and sewer infrastructure, which is about $90 million today. And a semiconductor plant, White Oak Semiconductor, was the first tenant out there. As everybody in the audience knows, the data center industry and the semiconductor industry need a lot of power, they need a lot of water. They're very heavy utility users, and so that positioned us well. And then in 2011, when the good folks at QTS had the foresight to take the former data center facility, which had closed, when all of our chip manufacturing went overseas, sound familiar, everyone, right? Trying to bring it back, QTS turned that into one of the largest data centers in the world, and from that, the NAP was born. And I think where, to go back to Vinay's earlier question, what our niche here in Henrico is going to be, we're never going to compete with Loudon, and that's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to be Loudon's little brother. We hope one day that Henrico will make the cover of Interglobix magazine. Maybe. There's some, Vinay actually brought copies with Buddy Reiser's face on them to my county. Anyway,
and
I love Buddy.
I love Buddy.
Buddy.
I saw those copies like somewhere in the corner somewhere. So.
I have no idea how that happened. I have no idea how that happened. We love Buddy. We love we love Loudoun County. But really, as you've heard today, and you're going to hear later today, what our niche is that if you're doing cross-Atlantic connectivity, if you're connecting to Europe, to Africa, to South America, and to Asia, that you're going to come through Henrico, through Virginia Beach, and across the Atlantic.
Absolutely. I think that's very well said in terms of the entire ecosystem. And I mentioned earlier, I pointed out John Martin and his effort in terms of what he's doing. I can't reiterate enough in terms of the value proposition. When you look at the mega region collectively combined, and Jason, you have a very important study underway from a data center perspective at a Commonwealth level. Of course, I've worked with Jennifer Taylor, who's here from NVTC. We've commissioned some studies of our own when it comes to data centers specific to certain counties. But Jason, tell us about that study, where it's at, what do you expect to derive out of it, and what would you like to share with the audience?
Well, big picture, there's going to be a lot more to share in a few months once the study is done. But big picture, we have been charged by the Virginia General Assembly with doing an economic impact study on Virginia's data center industry. I would say big picture, we expect to issue a report that says the impact of the industry is very, very large and very positive from an economic impact perspective. We also want to help to illuminate some of these sort of secondary and tertiary effects that I was alluding to earlier, and just really emphasizing that this is a great win-win partnership as we think about the many, many benefits of this industry for the folks who are employed in it, the folks who are investing in it, but also the citizens of the Commonwealth of Virginia and the communities that are host to the data center industry. So I'm really excited about it, and I'll tell you one of the reasons why this is going to be a more insightful report than anything that has ever been done before is that we've worked closely with the data center community to ensure that we have good data that really illuminates the full impact of this industry in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So we're super excited about that partnership, including with many of you in the audience today.
Yeah, I think it's a community coming together. I'm going to give everybody a chance to be prepared for one question you get each for Anthony, one for Jason. Whoever gets the chance to ask the first one gets it after my next question, which is for Anthony. Anthony, when we look at Henrico economic development, when we look at how the infrastructure has evolved over the last 25 years, what do the next 25 years look like for you, other than the cover of Interglobix magazine?
What are the next 25 years? Look for us absolutely leveraging the digital infrastructure that we've got, particularly in the eastern part of the county, and then really helping our existing businesses to grow with that. Because what's happening with the digital infrastructure, it's a whole lot more than data centers and just the data center ecosystem. It's about every business, because every business is a technology business. We know we're going to see more advanced manufacturing. We know we're going to see more corporate services, whatever that looks like, as the whole world rethinks the future of office space. And we think that having the digital infrastructure that we have today with the NAP and with the DKIX exchange really is going to be a differentiator for us as folks look to expand and to locate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think every business being a data business. I mean, I heard from the Bank of America CEO that they're no longer a bank. They're a technology company. They're a data company. And we have Bank of America represented here at another panel this afternoon. Let's see who has the first question here by the raise of hand. Okay. And I know it is lunchtime. I'm going to get the last question for Jason that I have. Jason, looking forward at a state level, I mean, obviously, you know, from where you sit, there's so much happening across the board from an industry perspective in terms of the growth, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of other industries. What are your top priorities, and what message would you like to give to this community in terms of, you know, for the Commonwealth of Virginia from where you sit?
It's a great question, Vinay. First of all, I'm just really, really excited about where we are and the opportunities ahead. I would say, big picture, Virginia is a state that's going to give this industry everything it needs to be enormously successful in the future, just as it has done in the past. From the talent to the renewable power to the research partnerships, to being just a great overall place in which to do business, in which to live, work, and play. Virginia will continue to be all of those things for you and for your families. I will also say that we recognize that one of the reasons, in addition to being an awesome place for business, in addition to having some really special partnerships that gave birth to this industry here in Virginia, in addition to all of that, we also recognize that part of the reason that this industry has thrived here is because we have been a partner in it, among other ways, through strong incentives. We were a leader in that area. We provided, I think all of you know that data centers in Virginia are subject to an exemption from sales and use taxes in Virginia. It is clearly, you look at all the research, one of the big reasons why Virginia has been a leader in data center investment. We've also seen many localities like Anthony's make changes to be competitive from a property tax rate and in other places. And so part of it is just recognizing that we need to continue to not only be a great place for business overall, to be a competitive place, to be a place that invests in the talent you need, in the solutions you need, but also recognizes the importance of being competitive on incentives and continuing those well into the future. So I think on all of those fronts, you're going to see the Commonwealth and its community be a great communities be a great set of partners to your industry. I just think as much as we've accomplished together, there's so much more as we look into the future. You imagine the next 10 years, the next 20 years, what technology is going to enable, the massive amounts of data that are going to be required to support the growth of this country and countries around the world. It's all going to rely on the backbone that we're building together and strengthening here in the Commonwealth. So I really thank you for this, Vinay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Anthony, closing remarks?
Closing remarks would be to this audience, just 3 simple words. Tell the world. We don't want to be anybody's best kept secret. Just please tell the world of the opportunity that we've got here in Henrico, that we have here in Virginia.
I'm going to save the last question for Vince Cerf, who has a question for you.
Thank you. This is a great discussion. I have actually 2 questions. I'm going to cheat. The first one has to do with government services to citizens. I haven't heard too much said about that this morning, and it seems to me that's a very important benefit that investment in infrastructure can have. And a related question is, how well do we know how people in the state are prepared to get access to internet to take advantage of those services? My impression is that we don't have as good a measurement capability as we should have, but in Virginia there is a group that's pursuing measurements of internet access across the state. And we're better off here than many other states have been. I don't know if you can speak to that. But those 2 things, government services and how digitally prepared are we, can you speak to that?
Yeah, I'll take it first while Anthony texts my wife that Vince Cerf is asking me questions. So first of all, I would say that when you look at just broad measures of governance and the quality of governance that is being provided to citizens, Virginia is at the very top of the list. It has a long tradition of good government. that manifests in a wide variety of ways. Very careful fiscal stewardship, very innovative project management, just careful project delivery. Great schools, great universities. I mean, on almost any measure of how well, AAA bond rating. Almost any measure of how government performs, Virginia ranks very, very high. I will say that one example of that is with the CARES Act. That was the federal COVID response and sort of stimulus package that was passed early in the pandemic. Every state, every community had extraordinary resources to invest as a result of that federal response. Virginia went long on expanding access to broadband. $700 million or so dollars invested statewide in broadband. So I think you'll see, you're seeing Virginia emerge as a leader in terms of kind of bridging the digital divide, if you will. Last mile, getting connectivity to people who are in outside of the major metros, places where it's easy. So I think that's just one way that that Virginia is leading in this area. So thank you for that question.
Jason and Anthony, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your support of this industry. Thank you for your support of IEIC. Really appreciate your comments. Let's give a big round of applause to both Jason and Anthony.